Hello, I am Shannon Edwards, your host and owner of TriStar Pension Consulting. I would like to welcome all new listeners to our podcast. I started this podcast because I'm going to start over. Hello, I'm Shannon Edwards, your host and the owner of TriStar Pension Consulting. I would like to welcome all new listeners to our podcast. I started this podcast because I have a passion for helping Americans achieve a dignified retirement. This podcast is designed to help improve lives by sharing ideas for closing the gap that America has in both retirement savings and retirement plan coverage. Today on The Gap, we are thrilled to welcome Amanda Iverson, a true leader in the retirement plan space. Amanda is the CEO and a partner at Pinnacle Plan Design, a firm known nationally for its defined benefit and cash balance expertise. She was also the 2024 president of the American Society of Pension Professionals and Actuaries, the nation's largest organization representing TPA professionals. Amanda is known for her thought leadership. She speaks at national conferences and has been widely published on topics ranging from firm management to HR best practices. She was a Tucson 40 under 40 honoree. She is a champion for educating business owners as well as other TPA firms and financial advisors. Please join me in welcoming a dynamic leader who is shaping the future of the retirement plan industry and one of my best friends, also known as the other half of the dynamic duo, Shamanda. Today, we're going to be talking about her journey, how Pinnacle supports other TPA firms, and helps close both the savings and coverage gaps in America's retirement system, and why she believes Cash Balance Plan can help to close the savings gap for working Americans. Welcome, Amanda.
Thanks, Shannon. I'm happy to be here. This is fun.
I'm happy to have you. Of course, I always enjoy the chance to just sit and chat with you. So anyway, let's get started.
Okay.
First of all, I want to get started with your story. What on earth led you to a career in retirement plan services?
Well, I'm no different than everyone else who found themselves here, right? Because very few people woke up when they were 10 and thought they wanted to service retirement plans. But I got my degree in accounting. I went to a CPA firm and became a CPA, public auditor, and I audited a bunch of retirement plans and I loved it. And that was my favorite niche to audit. So then Pinnacle Plan Design is associated with the CPA firm. So they actually had an opportunity to join them. And then I thought, well, this is great because I was only auditing employee benefit plans probably about 40% of my time while at the firm. And so I thought if I can work on retirement plans in some way or help retirement plans in some way, 100% of my time, let's do that. So then I ended up at Pinnacle a long time ago.
Well, they are lucky to have you. So tell me, what has kept you so passionate about this space since joining Pinnacle?
Yeah, so it's pretty rewarding when we get to see our clients retire. They talk about plan terminations, and we have a lot of plan terminations going on because of the length of the firm. And it's exciting to hear about work that we've done that helps other people retire every day. So that is one piece. But about maybe a little over a decade ago, I became pretty heavily involved in ASPA, the American Society of Pension Professionals and Actuaries, and ARA, the American Retirement Association. And through that, I got to see about a lot of the lobbying work that goes on and a lot of the work that we can do in order to help with that savings gap. And so that really fueled my passion, and it continues to fuel my passion there.
Yes, you and I both have that passion for the advocacy work that ARA does and
Absolutely.
for the volunteer work that they let us do. So,
Right. Right.
okay, so you have your CPA,
Yep.
your MBA,
Yep.
your HR credentials.
Yes.
You graduated with your MBA from the University of Wisconsin MBA Consortium. You're now the CEO and a partner at Pinnacle Plan Design. So, for people who may not be familiar with Pinnacle or with you, can you tell us a bit about what Pinnacle does and who you serve?
Sure. So Pinnacle, like your firm, one piece of what we do is we serve retirement plans as the third party administrator, the TPA. So we serve many plans in 40 states in that capacity. So we're working as their TPA with the financial advisor. And so we do that very regularly every day here. And then another side of what Pinnacle does, which is a little bit more unique, is we also work with other TPA firms, so firms like yours that may not have an actuary on staff, and we work and do we call it the back office actuarial work. So they are able to offer cash balance and defined benefit plans to their clients and we're in the background doing the actuarial work over here. So we work with about 45 TPA firms across the country.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we are lucky to have you supporting us because there is no way that I would want to do defined benefit plans myself and I don't have the opportunity to have an actuary on staff. So it has been a real blessing to have you guys as our back office actuarial firm.
Thanks. It's good to hear.
One unique aspect of Pinnacle is your support for other TPA firms by offering those actuarial services that we just talked about. Tell me, how did that model come about for you all? And how does that collaboration help strengthen the overall retirement plan ecosystem?
Yeah, okay. So our original founding partner, previous managing partner was Kevin Donovan, and he is an actuary and he is extremely passionate about education, particularly educating other professionals in the retirement plan industry. And so he spent a lot of his career and then helped many others within our firm, encouraging us to educate other TPAs across the country. And out of that, we saw a need for TPA firms that wanted to offer additional services to their clients, but they couldn't. And so we're like, wait a minute, we have capacity, we have multiple actuaries, they need help. Can we figure out how to do this? So through that, organically, it grew and grew and grew and grew to where it is today. So it's great because it allows other firms that, like you said, don't have the opportunity to have an actuary on staff still be able to offer that benefit to their clients. And it's another retirement plan, which, more retirement plans is a good thing. So I love it.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so many TPAs don't have in-house expertise in defined benefit or cash balance plans like we've been talking about. How does Pinnacle work to educate and empower those TPAs so they can better serve their clients?
Sure. So we work, like I said, that we are pretty passionate here about education. So we work on educating the TPAs. So oftentimes the TPA will come to us and say, I have all these 401k plans and all these clients, but I've never worked on a cash balance plan, or they're sort of intimidated by them, say. And so what we do is we do a lot of education. So at minimum, we have quarterly webinars on various defined benefit plan topics. We have a kind of unique situation in that we have some non-actuaries like myself and then many actuaries here. So sometimes the actuaries speak in a way that I'm sort of like, okay, back it up, English version, right? So we do a lot of training sessions where someone like myself and then the actuary will get on and talk about pretty technical defined benefit plan things. And then we call it actuarial language in English, because I'll have to remind them like, okay, back it up. Let's talk about that in English. So I think what our actuaries do a really great job of is taking these really complex matter and breaking it down so our TPAs can understand it, so they can understand when it makes sense for their clients.
I know you guys just did one on plan terminations, and Allison, my office manager, and I were listening to it. And one of the things we thought was really funny was the first time we went through a plan termination with Pinnacle, we had no idea that you couldn't charge distribution fees to
Yeah.
participants in a plan termination. And so, of course, we did. And then we got the big no call.
Yep.
And so I noticed in your webinar the other day, I think they said 15 times
I
at
think
least,
so.
you cannot charge fees to participants for distributions from a cash balance plan. And Allison and I just laughed when we got off. They were like, "Oh, that was definitely directed at us." But
No, that is a very common when people first come in. So now right away from the beginning, we say some things like, you must know this. And that is one thing. You cannot charge those fees
yeah.
for the distributions.
Well, it was so funny because when we did, I was talking to Lynn, who, has primarily tried to train me so that I can work better with you all. But it was funny. I was like, well, I mean, that would have been nice to know before we process the distributions. And sure enough, everything from then on says you cannot charge these fees. So, but
That's
I've learned so much. I mean, there's a lot that DC practitioners don't know, and your team is really good at teaching us those things and explaining them to us.
But it's helpful, just like you said, like, because sort of around here, that's like second nature, right? But if you're
Yeah.
new to the plans, you're like, "Oh, how would I know that, right?" So we actually depend on our TPAs to tell us the stuff they don't know, and that helps us with the education.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, back to cash balance plans, defined
Yeah.
benefit plans. What trends or misunderstandings do you commonly see among business owners, TPAs, and financial advisors when it comes to defined benefit plans? And I want to know how Pinnacle helps kind of bridge that knowledge gap.
So the most common thing I hear when people say like this is Pinnacle, they specialize in defined benefit plans or cash balance plans, or aren't defined benefit plans dying, right? That's what I hear all the time. And the answer is not necessarily no. The ginormous defined benefit plans, their trends are what they are, but we're dealing more with mid to mid-sized businesses. And those trends, they're still a really great option for benefit for those plans. So that's one thing that we commonly see. The other thing is, so say a company got into a windfall in one year and then they're like, hey, we want a cash balance plan. We know that this is a great thing. And we have to remember that there's still a permanency requirement. And so, a really cyclical company is not typically a great option for a cash balance plan because there needs to be some stability and you need to be able to handle some risk. And so those huge windfalls when they want to make a plan for a year, we're kind of like, no, the plan is not supposed to be here for a year. That's not a great option for you.
Right, right. Do you get a lot of concerns from financial advisors or from business owners or even from, TPAs that are interested in working with you, concerns about like complexity and cost? And how do you kind of tackle those?
Yeah, so we're just trying to be transparent as possible. So the honest to goodness truth is just transparency. So and education. So we're talking to them about here are the risks associated with the plans, right? And then here are the costs associated with the plans, and here are the benefits associated with the plans. And we look at all that to see if a cash balance plan makes sense for a business. But oftentimes it does. And really, I think the complexity, people are worried like, I'm going to have to know what the actuary knows, and you don't have to know what the actuary knows, right? They're in the back doing all the calculations, but that isn't really the job of the financial advisor or the other TPA or the business owner, right? You got to understand how the plan works, and we've got to do a good job of educating them there. But that complex nature of it, people sometimes think, oh, they're just too complicated, and they're really not. They're really not that complicated. Oh, don't tell the actuaries I said that.
Yeah, I won't tell them. I promise. I won't tell them. It's funny though, because most of the financial advisors that we work with, and most of the business owners that we work with, they just want to know that the clock works. They don't
Hmm.
want to know how the clock works. And
Yeah.
then every once in a while, I get one that wants to know how the clock works.
Yeah.
So
Like, if you
it's,
want
yeah,
to go in that level of detail, certainly you can go into, hey, here's how you build this entire bike, right? But a lot of people just want to ride the bike and enjoy it.
yeah.
So yeah,
I just want to ride the bike and enjoy it and have you all tell me that the bike is
yeah.
fine to ride. So honestly, the mission of this podcast is to explore ways to close the retirement savings and coverage gaps in America. From your perspective, how is Pinnacle's work, especially in the defined benefit and cash balance space, contributing to closing those gaps?
Okay, so since you told me to focus on that area, that's where I'll focus. But obviously, in the same way that other TPA firms, we're focused also on those 401k and profit sharing funds, of course. But there's a misnomer on a cash balance plan for a small business that's only for the owner. And that's just not the case. A lot of times, Shannon, if I was going to give you $3 to retire or give you $7 to retire, which one would you rather have?
Well, seven, of course.
Seven, right? So a lot of times that cash balance plan, adding that on to a 401k plan can really increase the benefits to the employees as well as the owner. So that helps with that gap, that coverage gap with the savings, because it really can enhance someone's savings by having that plan added to their overall plan or portfolio.
Yeah, and I think, there has been some stuff recently where, they portrayed a cash balance plan as something that it's not, right?
Mhm.
They portrayed it as something just for high income earners or business
Mhm.
owners. And, I really feel like they don't tell the whole story in that, or they don't know the whole story.
Right.
And that it's really not true. Because as you mentioned, oftentimes we're increasing benefits that the employees wouldn't have already gotten.
Absolutely.
And employees are happy to have those increased benefits. And a lot of times it helps, keep the employees there longer because they're interested in investing in that and stuff. So
Yeah, it's like you said, there's two kind of things you hit on there. One is increasing that savings number. So, if you just had a defined contribution, a 401k plan all by itself, you might get $3, like you said, and then you add a cash balance plan, and now suddenly you're getting $7. Well, that's a great benefit to you. Another benefit is just retention for that company because, if I'm looking at two companies and one has both plans and one only has one plan and the benefits are richer over in this other plan where they have two, that's great retention benefit for the plan or for the company, excuse me. So yeah, I agree with you that there's a lot of mistaken understandings of cash balance plans. They're only for owners or high income people, and that's not necessarily true. They can be really beneficial for all employees.
yeah, I think one thing that I really like about them too, added to the 401k plan is sometimes we have employees or team members who they're not in a position, maybe due to something in their personal life, to actually save for themselves.
Mhm.
Maybe they're paying off student loans. Maybe they have, two kids in daycare. Whatever the situation is, maybe at this time of their life, they don't have the extra income to put away themselves. So one thing that I really like about the cash balance plan too is that they don't have to put money away. They
Mhm.
are going to get the benefit of the company contribution, whether they put their own money away or not. And then I think if we compare it, to the 401k plan, where most 401k plans are giving participants the ability to direct their own investments, to make
Mhm.
their own investment choices, which may or may not turn out to
Right.
be a wonderful, profitable idea for them, but it is what most 401k plans do now. The cash balance plan has a guaranteed rate of return on it that the participant is not going to get hurt. They're going to get that guaranteed interest rate. You want to
Yeah,
touch
I
on
mean,
that a little bit?
yeah, on the 401k side, just like you're saying, if it's participant directed, right, that participant is bearing the risk, let's say, of that, how that investment does, if they're deciding where it goes, right? And so, if their investments go gangbusters, great, but if they tank, oh, whoops. Whereas the employer is really bearing the risk over on that cash balance side because they're directing all of those assets. And usually a cash balance plan has a more conservative savings plan, and so it is that nice supplement where, over here, if I don't know anything about it, you have hopefully a financial advisor who's doing a great job guiding you, of course, and helping you with that. But really, as the employee, you're bearing the risk. And over here on this cash balance plan, the employee is no longer bearing that risk because they have that rate of return that they know they're getting basically
Right.
in their plan, essentially, in layman's
Right.
terms. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, that's a huge benefit in and of itself, as far as I'm concerned, because no matter what happens, they're going to get the promised
Benefit.
benefit at the
Mhm.
end, either when they retire or when they terminate employment. They're going to get what I promised them or what the business owner promised them at the very beginning, regardless of what happens in the market
Yeah, and
or
that's kind
or
of a
anything
nice
else.
piece of a cash balance plan more so than a defined benefit plan. A cash balance plan used to kind of say, hey, when you retire, you're going to get, here's this long formula, right? Whereas a cash balance plan looks a little bit more like a 401k. It sort of tells them, like, here's your theoretical account balance, here's, what the number is. And so it kind of helps them understand a little bit more. It's a little more understandable about, oh, this is what I'm getting. All right.
Right, right. I totally agree. When we started talking about cash balance plans years ago, I finally sort of understood what we were talking about versus like trying to talk about traditional defined benefit plans and figure out what exactly the participant
Yeah.
was really getting when they retired. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's easier to understand.
Yeah. Easier for the participant, the owner, everybody.
Yeah. What would you say to a business owner or a financial advisor who's hesitant to explore cash balance plans because they think they're too complex?
Well, first I would talk to them. Like I said, I always like to tell them the risks associated, right? So I would start with that. Like, I want to be transparent. Here's the risks. Here's some rules associated with them. This is not a plan for a year. I want to make sure that permanency role is, they're very clear about that. And then I want to talk about what are your goals, right? So let's look at your overall demographics of your company and let's do an illustration. Let's see if it makes sense for you. And what makes sense for one company might not make sense, even the same exact illustration for another company, because it just depends on the goals of those plans. For the financial advisor, usually the financial advisors like the plans because, like I said, it's a little bit more conservative of an investment. So they're trying to get a certain rate of return when they're investing the assets. So that's a little bit, I would say, even dare I say, easier for that financial advisor when they're trying to do that. So actually, for them, once they understand it, it's again about education. But I do want to make sure that you never sell a plan without them understanding the benefits and the risks for sure.
Right. Okay, as we look into the future of retirement plan design, what excites you the most about the role of TPAs, especially those who are stepping into more advanced plan types like defined benefit and cash balance plans?
Well, as we expand that throughout the country more and more, if we can get more and more cash balance plans out there, I'm excited about that because like I said, I'd rather see employees get $7 versus $3. And that often happens with a plan. So that is a huge benefit, I think. Overall, I love that TPAs generally we're the sort of the nerds of the bunch, right? We're kind of like we're like the less cool version of a financial advisor, let's just say. We generally really like education. I know that's a stereotype, but generally that's the case. And so I really appreciate that TPAs are excited about educating their clients about the benefits of a plan and how important it is. I'm always surprised when we still find businesses that don't have plans. And it
Right.
just it seems crazy to me. I'm like, it's such a huge recruiting tool for you, and an important part of being a business owner is like looking at this and looking at your employees and making sure you have some plans for them, including a retirement plan, helping them out there. So I'm excited that TPAs seem passionate about that education piece. I like that. And then those of us who are involved heavily with the ARA, I love the advocacy work and being able to help get our voice out there to help, with that gap that's still sitting there. That's improving every day, but still
It
sitting.
is improving and is improving. So, and I firmly believe in ARA's mission, as well as, their belief that the private retirement system is working
Hmm.
and is working well. Because I think, all of us that are in the trenches every day, working with plan participants, working with business owners, working to get those gaps closed, we're actually seeing those improvements on a
Absolutely.
daily basis. So I think, it is exciting. It is
Yeah, it
exciting.
is. And really, when we think of retirement, we sort of have the Social Security bag, right? And then we have this retirement plan bag. And the more we can add to that retirement plan bag and get that in there, those two working hand in hand, it's exciting when you get to see clients retiring and what goes to their employees and, helping to cover that gap every day. It's an exciting part of what we do.
It is. It is. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being here and for all the work you and your team are doing to empower TPAs and help close the gaps in retirement savings and coverage. Your insight into cash balance plans and education is exactly the kind of practical innovation we need in our industry. For anyone who wants to learn more about the work Amanda and her team at Pinnacle are doing in the industry, we will drop her contact information in the show notes. Thank you for joining us on The Gap, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Shannon.